Well, I think just talking residential, I think for institutions, probably a benefit is diversification, because obviously in Holland, the pension funds have invested actively in residential over the years, but in the UK and Germany, sort of less so. So it's reliable, it's predictable, it's stable, it's correlated to inflation. There's very good statistics about vacancy and delinquency and obsolescence. That's all the pros. The cons are, the gross to net, the ingoing yield that people worry about. But if you get, inflation hedging in your rents and decent capital value, you've got a good asset class. So I think, and it sort of ticks the sustainable, responsible investing box. So I think more and more people are looking at it, and then it's a question of, the orange chart that the minister put up in terms of the percentage of social housing in Holland relative to the rest of Europe. It sort of screams at you. And the romper suit is very much where we're looking. So, the sort of supply side statistics from an investment point of view look attractive.
Okay, good. Yes, Percy, yeah.
Yes, when we are looking for new countries and new sectors to invest in, we are basically doing a really macro top-down research. And one of the recent research we have done by John Danes, who is here from our research team, is the winning cities. Which are the winning cities globally, but also in Europe? And there are some definitions for the winning cities, and it's of course a GDP growth, a population growth, high quality universities, what level of rent you have, and so forth and so forth. So that's how we are looking for the markets where we want to invest in. But also it's a top-down. On top of the top-down, it's a bottom-up approach. So what type of stocks and assets are available in those markets, and what type of regulations and restrictions there are. What is the political stability? And I think that's a really important for the housing and residential. How predictable the political environment is there. How often in the past the regulations has changed. Has that been a big concern for the local institutions as well as for the international investors? If we can tick a lot of those boxes, and as the ministry already here mentioned that it's been a good progress in the Netherlands, I think that makes that country and those cities, those winning cities, attractive for us and our investor base, so that we can take the further steps.
Okay, good. Marcus, you wanted to?
Maybe just to add one or two things on it. I think connectivity is something that for the Dutch market might be not so crucial because it's a relatively small country, and the connectivity is already very good. But I think that is one of the things when we look at Resi, how are the areas connected to the places where people work, and so I think public transportation is one of the major issues increasingly when you look at residential. How can the people get in and out of their living areas? Because I think reliability on car transport is something that in the medium to long term will really not be the benefit for residential locations. And I think according to cities, this is something. What are your long-term plans on public infrastructure, especially public transportation? How do you want to expand and connect with each other? That's the point we are looking heavily at when we are selecting locations where we want to invest and go for. The other thing is, I think demographics and urbanization everybody is looking at, but it's much more than just looking at the headline figures. It's about the structure behind it. How do household structures change? How do living styles change? Because if you look at the markets across Europe, when we figure out this, everybody thinks population growth and GDP growth might be the major drivers of rents, but actually they are not. And that is not only because that regulation hinders rent increases sometimes, but also because it's much more the figures beneath these headline figures that influence the markets. How have structures changed? How has demand figures changed? And that's what we're trying to more or less in detail grasp and analyze to be really able to see what is needed at what place to be invested.